So a lot of you out there don't feel like you belong anywhere. You've gotten out, you're trying to figure out your place in civilian society, and you keep looking, but you can't find the place. You can't find a place where you're comfortable. You can't find a place where you trust people, and you're feeling pretty lonely. I talked to you before about why I think this is happening, and as I told you, I think it's because a lot of you are exceptional. You're not supposed to fit in, right? Being an exceptional person, a person who's of a higher moral fabric and a higher skill set than most civilians, you're going to find a lot of places where you don't fit in. But I'm also going to tell you something that I think can really help you. It's a little bit complicated, a little bit abstract, but I think it can help you in finding a place where you can fit in, figuring out what your purpose is here on this planet, and most of all, just understanding your direction and what you should be doing in order to get to where you want to go. And the first thing is changing your focus. So many of us focus on what we are, right? We focus on the label. We focus on being a Marine. We focus on being a soldier. We focus on being a police officer. We focus on being a teacher, or any of the labels that society gives us. But very few of us focus on who we are. Who we are is a very different concept than what we are. What we are, a lot of times, is just determined by our circumstances or the choices laid out for us by society, or what we think our friends and our family are going to be impressed with or happy with us doing with our lives. Who we are is different in that it's based on us. It's based on our values. It's based on who we want to be, the type of person we want to be. Yeah, what you are, being a Marine is honorable, being a police officer is honorable. But those choices were evolved from a sense of who you were, somebody who wanted to live up to values like duty, honor, courage, and commitment, things like that, right? And so your choice to become those things evolved from who you saw yourself as being and who you wanted to become. And somewhere along the line, when you got out, you stopped thinking about who you were and the choices that led you to become a Marine or a soldier or an airman or a sailor or a police officer or any of those things. And you started focusing more on the material label. You started focusing on the uniform. You started focusing on the way other people saw you. And so you lost a bit of who you are because you feel like you lost your identity. But here's the thing. When you're guided by strong values, when you're guided by a strong vision of who you are, the label doesn't matter. You're still a Marine. You're still a soldier. You might not be carrying a weapon. You might not be wearing a uniform. But in who you are, you're still those things. You still hold those values. And so what you come to realize is it doesn't matter where you are in life. You might not be successful. You might not have money. You might be living out of your car like I was. But what I figured out when I was living in my car was that when I stopped focusing on the fact that I was living out my car, and when I stopped focusing on the fact that I had no money, and when I stopped focusing on the fact that the label that people were giving me at the time, which was someone who was poor, or a bum, or some homeless guy who was living out of his car. And I stopped focusing on what I wasn't anymore. I stopped focusing on the fact that I wasn't in the Marine Corps anymore, or the fact that, I wasn't wearing a uniform anymore because I couldn't control those things. I started focusing on who I wanted to become and who I was. And that evolved from what was important to me, right? I wanted to help veterans out. I wanted to focus on fitness. I wanted to encourage people to live healthy lifestyles. I wanted to encourage people to live their best lives and find success. And so that guides me into what I'm doing today. You know, when I first opened up Warrior Soul, we didn't get sales for months, right? There were months where we had $50 in sales. That's pretty demoralizing. But if I focused on my label as an unsuccessful t-shirt salesman, then I would have given up. I wouldn't have kept going. What guided me was the vision for Warrior Soul and what I knew it could become. I knew that once we started getting our message out, that veterans would listen. I knew that we could use this brand in this company to inspire veterans to live better lives. And so that purpose, that vision, that mission is what guided me. So what I'm going to encourage you to do is to throw out the idea of what you are, right? And start focusing on who you are. Stop focusing on the fact that you're out of the Marine Corps and start focusing on the fact that being a Marine is part of your identity, right? And when I say being a Marine is part of your identity, that doesn't mean going around and, acting all militant. What that means is focusing on the values that the Marine Corps instilled in you, focusing on honor, courage, and commitment, focusing on the idea of brotherhood. And maybe that leads you to help other veterans out. Maybe that leads you to start your own business. Maybe that leads you into working harder in your job or to finding a career path that you really love and finding new purpose in your life. And I can say that this one thing, focusing on who you want to be, is probably the most important thing you can do. It's more important than any business plan. It's more important than any, 67-step program. Without this idea of who you are, you'll never have a fully sure idea of if you're going to be happy with what you're working to become. And if you focus on who you are, you're always going to have a moral guide for whatever you do. And at the end of it all, you'll have a fully developed, happy life that's not going to be absent of pain and sorrow, but that will give you guidance through any hard times and through any bullshit you have to go through. Because at the end of the day, you'll know you have a purpose. All right? I hope this makes sense. I'm always open for questions. Please hit me up and let me know. And I love you all. Peace out.